Today, I'm going to attempt to create an end grain cutting board. Nearly fail and throw in the towel, but preserve and make something great. Last video, I created a cutting board from walnut, redgum and blackbutt, but after making those boards, gifted them to my mum for her birthday. She showed them off to my pa and well, he seemed a little jealous. So I set out to make him a board that I could send over to him. Only problem was I had used up all my walnut on the previous build, and I wasn't about to buy a more expensive walnut for one board, but I did have a good amount of redgum and blackbutt left over. However, there still wasn't enough to do the last board's design, but there was enough to make an end grain cutting board, or at least that's what I told myself. Taking measurements of the stock that I had left over, I mocked up a quick idea of what I thought the board should come out as. With the model, I was now fairly confident that I would have enough stock to make something. The plan was simple: rip the boards down to 30mm thick strips, glue them together, cut those strips into 100mm blocks that can glue together to create blanks, and then rip them into 30mm strips again, leaving me with a pattern of 30mm cubes. The plan was simple, but the process was anything but. I started off by ripping the two boards down to the desired thickness of 30mm. My vac was starting to be pitiful at sucking, so I quickly replaced the bag and noticed a few small bits stuck in the hose, so they got removed. Out of the stock I had, I could rip two strips from each type and glue them together. It was during this glue up that I became painfully aware of my lack of clamps. I'll fix that later.
Day 2.
This is where my first problem occurred. Somehow I did not notice that the red gum was about 5mm thicker. I think that's about 3/16 of an inch for the Americans. However, I trucked along, thinking I can plane it down, not realizing that what I was about to do was going to make that extremely difficult. I measured the strips to calculate how many blocks I can get, so then I can calculate how many blanks it will get me. I gave up. To cut the strips into blocks, I can use a scrap piece of wood to the fence to use as a stop block. This will allow me to quickly reproduce the cuts. Using a cross-cut sled here would probably have been a breeze, but I have yet to make one for the saw. That might be my next project. I'm cutting these to 110mm because it will allow me to get 3 strips out of them. Once I've glued them up, and it will only leave a small amount of waste. I lay out all the blocks into what will be the engram pattern. This gets me 3 blanks of 10 pieces. This would mean that I would have a 9x10 board, but as you'll see later, that kind of changes. Why? Well, because of my previous problem of the red gum being thicker. Once I glued them together into these blanks, that problem got worse. And yet, I still thought I could plane it down. Scrap pieces of wood were to help keep the end aligned, but I forgot that wood glue tends to glue wood together.
A few moments later.
It was right about here that it dawned on me. The blanks that I had cut were not long enough to go through the planer. So, in a way to fix this, I thought I could create a sled that held all the pieces together as they went through the planer. Now, in theory, this should work, but this is where the problem of the red gum came to finally bite me in the ass. Allow me to explain. The planer has 2 rollers in it. These 2 help keep pressure down on the board so it won't jump anywhere, and to help feed the board through into the blade. Now, say you have 3 pieces stuck together that you feed through. Should work. That is if they're all perfectly fit together, which as you already know, mine were. So you get this issue where as the piece goes through, uneven pressure from the rollers are applied to them and the boards move, and well, you can figure out the rest. I was extremely lucky that this did not end badly. Without the sled holding everything in place, this definitely would have gone way worse. At first it worked, but then as the blades started to take more and the rollers got more pressure onto the pieces, it stopped working. I'll spare your eyes the pain of me destroying these boards, but I spent an hour trying to more evenly strengthen these pieces so that they went through better. Everything seemed to only make it worse, and I was now cutting lower than the 30mm thickness I had set. This really defeated me, and I nearly threw in the towel thinking I had ruined the pieces. But I got back up and tried once more, this time without the sled, and putting one piece at a time through, across the grain. Now, why did I not do this in the first place? When I looked it up before doing the sled, everything I could find suggested that the cross grain in the planer would damage the blades and may even be dangerous, so that's why I went with the sled. If you know any more of this, I would love to hear your feedback or tips. At this point, I was ready to try anything. Damn the blades. Now, I did not film this part mainly because I honestly thought the project was over, and this was a last-ditch effort, but it worked, and I managed to fix my screw up and flatten the boards properly. It was back on. But now I was aiming for 25mm thickness, because that's how much I had taken away. Each edge of the blanks got a clean edge, then ripped down to the thickness. Because of the new thickness, instead of the boards being a 9x10, it turned into a 12x10, which I guess we can chalk up to being a happy accident.
We don't make mistakes, we have happy accidents.
Laying out the pieces into the final pattern for the board, it was starting to come together. Learning from my previous glue up mistakes, I taped the sides of scrap pieces so the glue wouldn't stick to them. I also had more clamps now.
Tomorrow.
Even in all my genius, I still managed to glue the board to the bottom of the piece.
Sometimes my genius is... it's almost frightening.
cleaned up the edges on the board and then cut a 45-degree edge on the bottom of the board. I did this because I didn't think the hand grooves would work with the thickness of the board. With this 45 it makes picking up the board easy and it looks nice. Some of the pieces in the board had holes in them, so I filled them with glue and sanded over them to help colour the glue the same as the wood. Time for good old sanding.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
I started at 80 grit and worked my way up to 220 grit, making sure to raise the grain with some water between each grit. I hand sanded the edges to give them a little bevel. I find this makes objects feel a little better to hold because there are no sharp edges. With the sanding done, I cleaned the boards down with some mineral spirits to remove any dust left on the board from sanding. Once that's dried, I applied a coat of tung oil to the bottom, sides, and then the top. I leave this for 30 minutes and then wipe off any excess, then leaving it to dry overnight. I apply another coat, doing the same as the last coat. When the last coat is dried, I apply a layer of beeswax to the top of the board and buff it out. This layer adds extra protection to the top, and I find it adds a nice sheen to the board.
Nice.
And with that, the build is finally complete. Well, there you have it. There were a lot of ups and downs, but in the end I managed to get it done. And I think it turned out better than I originally thought it would. If you watched up to this point, thank you for watching. Please subscribe as I have more projects I want to try next. Leave me a comment of any feedback or tips. I will try to respond to any of them. Thanks for watching. Until next time.